free for a limited time. Every cinematic episode like this one is accompanied by a premium Roundtable review episode. The hosts take you behind the scenes and deeper into the investigation. Subscribe now. YouShouldNotKnowThis.org.
Congress must understand that the American people support the struggle for democracy in Central Ireland.
Singing a song of the men behind the motor trucks. Keep them rolling all across the USA.
You should not know this. But they're too late.
An 18-wheel, cross-country crime spree. 7,000 miles. 19 states. California to New England. Michigan to New Mexico. 1 truck, 2 trailers. Thousands of pounds of meat. Thousands of bottles of whiskey. 10,000 cantaloupes, give or take. 6 figures of loot. And the witnesses won't talk.
You should not know this. This is an active investigation built on public records, contemporaneous reporting, and first-hand interviews. The accused are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Some matters remain unresolved, and uncertainty is clearly stated. Some names have been changed, and graphic detail has been withheld. Discretion advised.
The 1960s in the U.S. were volatile.
I pledge to you, we shall have an honorable end to the war in Vietnam.
The 1970s were unpredictable.
This time, vote like your whole world depended on it.
Launch commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff with Apollo 14. 3 minutes past the hour.
While things were getting weird in America, Ted Braden was getting normal.
Why have you been holding out on me?
We don't make much money. But from now on, I'm keeping track of the overhead. And when I've saved enough money, we're going to be married.
What am I going to be doing while you're saving the first million?
Waiting for me?
At the very beginning of this series, you learned that little was known of Ted Braden's life. Just about everything through the Fort Dix release was known. Drew did most of the heavy lifting on that. Almost everything after Fort Dix is new to the public. With his self-proclaimed CIA ties and death-defying style, people wanted to know what Ted Braden did with the rest of his life. After military banishment. After the Ramparts magazine article. Everybody from old army buddies, if you can call them that, to researchers and investigators. And now you know why finding information is hard. And why Ted Braden's reality is a little shocking. Or maybe it isn't. The 1970s are a black hole in the life of Ted Braden. Mostly. After the Fort Dix release, he headed to Niles, Ohio. In 1970, Ted married wife number 3 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. We have the marriage license. On it, he lied. Ted had 2 previous wives. On the license, he claims none. And Ted was about to inherit stepdaughters. The Mon Valley. Gritty. Industrial. After marriage, evidence says Ted moved with his new family to the Mon Valley, south of Pittsburgh. He was likely working as a truck driver for PPG out of the town of Charleroi. They stayed in the Mon Valley till some point in 1972, when he packed up the family and got out of there. Ted moved to Chicago and moved up. Drew connected with one of Ted's stepdaughters. What she had to say is hard to explain.
She recalled that they were living in Chicago in a penthouse. That's basically how she described it.
It's where they lived and what they drove.
Both had newer model Mercedes-Benz cars.
What she does not know is how in the world Ted got that money. In the Mon Valley, Ted was a truck driver for PPG. In Chicago, Ted was a truck driver for Consolidated Freightways. Same kind of thing. Your typical Consolidated Freightways truck driver did not live in a penthouse.
She made it clear that she had always wondered, as well as her other sisters, how he had so much to spend on the finer things like luxury cars, a penthouse, always dressed very nice, go to nice restaurants and shop at department stores that were higher end. Endless sorts of speculation amongst the sisters as well as their mother about where this money came from.
Ted Braden loved money. Finally, he had it. But nobody can explain how he got it. The Mon Valley is small. Chicago is big. If Ted's gains were ill-gotten, was he hiding them in a penthouse in plain sight?
Well, as we know, Ted spent a lot of time in the military, and we know about Vietnam and we know about the Congo, and after that it does seem that he wanted to plant his feet, maybe.
Well, we know from Ted's life prior to Vietnam that he would fluctuate between what most would consider a normal life and more thrilling pursuits in the military and otherwise.
He does seem to be attempting to become a normal Ted Braden with a family. But Ted is a very mysterious person, and I'm assuming that he may have looked like he was, the dutiful husband, but probably had his mind on other things.
He'd do one thing for a while and then do another. And so when I hear that Ted has now settled down in the 70s, my first thoughts are either it's not going to last or he's got some kind of side hustle. We just know from his history that he didn't work straight jobs for long.
A penthouse apartment and potentially a couple of expensive Mercedes and meals out and dressing nicely and things like that. So you have to surmise that he had a side hustle. There seems to be many different opportunities for Ted with his skill set. We've looked into the salaries of truck drivers in the early to mid-70s. it does seem to be that a truck driver would not bring in enough money to keep Ted in the life that he wanted to be.
The Mon Valley, this small town about 30 miles south of Pittsburgh. I got to think that that's probably a more risky place to hide cash. Then he moves up to Chicago, a big city. He can kind of be a little more anonymous in that setting.
More of the lifestyle that he kind of pictured himself in. You know, big city slicker type of persona instead of this small town nobody. You know, I think that was all part of his, what he envisioned for himself.
Get all the evidence and exclusive content when you subscribe. YouShouldNotKnowThis.org.
Guerrillas seek the destruction of El Salvador and we draw the line
The 1970s. Ted Braden's Black Hole. The key to unlocking 1970s info might be real people with real memories. One of the bigger 1970s revelations came from family. Drew's work again.
I had to use my genealogy skills to find out who Ted Braden's mother married and what her new surname was. I was able to find his nephew.
Drew was able to get what is our most recent photo of Ted from 1975.
Ted's nephew had a treasure trove of photographs. The one that stood out to me the most was probably circa 1975. He wasn't even sure of the year, thinking it was mid-70s. He had moved out of the United States to Scotland, so it was literally in a shoebox in Scotland for many years. And it shows Ted Braden in Toledo, Ohio, and his mother is smoking a cigarette sitting on the couch. She's very pale because she's mostly of Irish ancestry. The thing that sticks out the most is you can see that Ted is very dark. His skin is very dark complected. A very lucky find.
The picture of Ted from Ted's nephew was good, but Ted's stepdaughter had something even more compelling. Not a picture, but a letter in Ted's own words and handwriting.
Written from Ted Braden to his third wife. One thing that jumped out at me about this 2-page letter was very neat penmanship and this very neat cursive handwriting, which you just don't see anymore. And it was very well preserved. It was something that he left for her to read.
Ted did not have an English accent, but the letter sounds better with one. Here it is.
3 April 73. Dear Wife 3. This note is to advise you of what you may expect from me in your immediate future. When you walked out of the apartment this morning against my wishes, you disobeyed me for the last time. You are now a liberated woman. You may expect to receive by certified check something around $10 a week, each week, until final divorce. In addition, I will pay the manager our rent for both February and March, April being already paid by my initial security deposit in 1972. Further, I will pay the $133 now charged against my account at Carson Peary Scott. But please make no further charges there now. Your personal indebtedness to both Mrs. McMahon and Klaus Department Store I consider your problem. As for my intentions, I intend to remain with Consolidated Freightways as long as they want me. While in Chicago, I intend to at least temporarily stay at the Mid-America Motor Inn on 79th Street. You may contact me there or at Consolidated Freightways offices when our state or federal tax returns arrive at this address. Should you attempt to forge my name to either return, I shall immediately bring legal action against you. Speaking of money, half of what we have in our joint checking account is there for your use. In closing, let me wish you the best of luck in your new job, your new career, and your not-so-independent way of life. Best of luck, Ted.
Read the end again.
In closing, let me wish you the best of luck in your new job, your new career, and your not-so-independent way of life.
Is Ted mad that she got a job? Like they had money, she didn't need a job, and he's mad that she wanted a job?
He has that usual snarkiness. I don't think there's a better word for it. He's always very curt, very snarky. That's what we come to expect of him.
During that time, it was just sort of part of the culture that the men worked, the women didn't.
He definitely seems to be alluding to the women's liberation movement and maybe how his third wife is maybe getting somewhat caught up in that culture of the 1973 women having more rights.
Old-fashioned way of thinking, we look at it now, but that kind of comes out in this letter from Ted.
You notice he uses the words independent, way of life, and your newfound independence and freedom. You can tell he doesn't like that.
I find this very interesting. We know that Ted was very respectful of women. He was slightly less respectful, I feel, of women that he was involved with or that was part of his life. There's definitely an old-fashioned mentality here. I'm the breadwinner. You don't need to go out and earn any money. I'm good enough. I'm looking after you.
He probably liked being the sole provider, and whether that was just because those were the values back then, or it was a way for him to maintain some power and control in the relationship.
He obviously comes from an older time, the Midwest, where it's very traditional values, and that could be part of the reason why she's not adhering to his commands so much anymore.
She wanted independence, and he didn't like that, and I suppose you could track that back to his military. I'm not saying he was giving her orders, but he was obviously he was the man of the house, he was in charge, and she was probably sticking up for herself a little bit.
Ted mentions a joint bank account, alluding to the fact he has other bank accounts.
Yeah, my supposition is that Ted had an account which he knew about and nobody else did, which probably had the majority of his earnings.
At least one more. And what was funding that account, we don't really know.
It's quite nice, to have a second account which, the both of you in the relationship can access.
It was probably more the norm for a couple or a married couple to have a joint account, but it absolutely implies that there's more than one and that he probably has his own.
Knowing Ted, I do think he almost certainly had his own bank account.
Absolutely implies that he's got more somewhere else that he does not want her to have full access to.
Newly separated Ted Braden proclaimed he'd be moving to the Mid-America Motor Inn. It was an all-glass kind of place. A piano, lounge singer, a little swanky, and not cheap.
Ted paying 2 months of penthouse rent on top of a very nice motel room. Clearly had money to spare.
The letter is one of the few pieces of tangible 1970s evidence we have. And it came from a family member, not a public record. And that, right there, is the problem. We know where Ted was, when he was, but finding his name in print, in that location, at that time, is elusive. If you knew where your great-grandmother was living in 1970, you could find evidence that she was there, living, with minimal effort. It's not true for Ted Braden. So, for now, my working theory is Ted was using an alias in the 1970s.
Ted was hard to trace in the 70s. I think there are a couple possible explanations. Perhaps he was either trying to stay out of trouble, or he was very effective at keeping his troublesome activities on the down low. Either way, he may have been using an alias during this time, and at the very least, he was able to remain well out of the spotlight as much as he could manage.
Absolutely well-versed in how to use an alias. He admits to using an alias, taking the name of a man that was killed in a training accident when a mortar prematurely exploded. So it's not a big jump to surmise that he's also doing that in the 1970s, making it harder to track him. Probably had a bank account with another name on it. I think he was very well-versed in CIA tactics, so to speak, how to be somebody else, how to become someone else, how to look like somebody else. Probably did it most of his life. It probably names that we'll never know.
The thought of disguising himself, and I don't just mean physically, I mean in every way, shape or form, runs through Ted's life. I mean, he's here, there, but you can't find him. He's there, he pops up for a minute, then he's gone again. I was speaking to someone the other day and they said to me, if you could describe Ted Braden in one word, what would that one word be? And I said the word would be chameleon. He can change his form. Even in photographs, he looks different. How does he do that? There's something about this guy.
Ted does pop up on the radar under his real name in 1975. He was returning to Chicago from Rockford, Illinois. He was working, driving a semi-truck, a 2-lane highway. Ted went to pass on the left. Problem was, the pickup in front of him was turning left. So Ted left 87 feet of skid mark on the highway. He hit the pickup. Ted was charged and ticketed for improper passing. He was guilty, paid a fine. Former Consolidated Freightways drivers say at that time, Ted probably would not have been fired for that accident. But it is possible. This proves Ted Braden could show up in records in the 70s. He may have been using an alias, but you can't use an alias on your driver's license.
In the early 70s, it looks like Ted is trying to find his way, have a stable home life, afford a higher lifestyle.
I mean, Ted did go quiet for quite a while. My supposition on that would be that he'd made money somewhere.
He identifies with a higher lifestyle in appearance, although he is a truck driver. But he still wants to appear to people that don't know him as somebody more than he really is. I don't know if this comes from an insecurity or just something he personally likes.
If you've got money in the bank, do you need to perform crimes? Possibly in his case. It was the thrill of the chase.
The car he drives, where he lives, he's trying to be two people at once. Somebody very refined in speech and thought.
It does seem that he was okay at that point, maybe financially, and that's probably why his name doesn't pop up in newspaper articles, etc., for quite a while.
Seems to be trying to find his footing somehow in between these two worlds. And I don't know where that's coming from.
I can only think that he was doing okay financially, whether that be legitimately or not.
Perfect combination of high intelligence and criminality in the 1970s more than ever.
Wife 3 left Chicago and left her life with Ted and went back home, back to the Mon Valley.
I think he just couldn't keep it together, and the relationship started falling apart, and then they eventually wind up back in the Mon Valley. Didn't last as long as he probably wanted it to. It was making an attempt at this grandiose lifestyle that he always felt that he belonged in.
From that point, whenever, pretty much the letter onwards, Ted was basically staying in hotels, wasn't he, for quite a period of time. These hotels where he was staying weren't the cheapest hotels. He's obviously got money and probably got room service.
Yeah.
The feeling, at least with myself, is that he was involved in some pretty bad stuff that some people do have knowledge of, and they just don't want to talk about it.
Just given how little public record is available, any knowledge about Ted Braden's life would be a huge help in piecing together this investigation.
What's been very exciting for myself since we really started investigating Ted, we have managed to find a few people that knew Ted, especially in his later life, the 1980s and even later than that. So this is exciting. So reach out to us. The website is youshouldnotknowthis.org. One of the most elusive people on the planet.
Subscribers access the decades-old documents that brought this story to life. Subscribe at youshouldnotknowthis.org.
Must have the courage to help all our friends and labor leaders of Central America, the United States.
Technically, not all of the 1970s were docile for domesticated Ted Braden. And not all of the 1970s were a black hole. Because in 1979, Ted covered 7,000 miles in 19 states. It began in Arizona, crisscrossed the country, side to side, top to bottom. It was an outrageous crime spree. The run finally ended in New Mexico, or was it New York? Both. In 1979, Ted Braden was hired in Arizona to drive a truckload of cantaloupes from California to New Jersey. It wasn't his truck, it wasn't his trailer, and they weren't his melons. Everything seemed to be going swimmingly until Ted was about to arrive in New Jersey. About that time, he received word to reroute the cantaloupe delivery to New York. Okay, but Ted never did arrive in New York. Ted or the Melons. The Melons or the trailer were never accounted for. Several weeks later, in Massachusetts, a truck driver went to hook up his trailer at a wharf. When he arrived, the trailer was gone. Because earlier, Ted Braden had arrived in his cantaloupe truck. Ted hooked up to the wharf trailer, loaded it with frozen fish, and stole it. He stayed in New England, pulled into a warehouse. At the warehouse, he topped off the wharf trailer with frozen beef. Now Ted was ready to leave New England. He was driving the Arizona Cantaloupe truck, pulling the New England wharf trailer. And he arrived in Detroit with an empty trailer. Somewhere between New England and Detroit, the fish and beef vanished. Whereabouts unknown. With the empty trailer, Ted headed to a Detroit liquor distributor to continue his work. He knew people there. They're named in the court documents. And they won't talk to us. This was 1979. The Detroit liquor distributor loaded Ted with thousands of bottles of Canadian whiskey. His job? Deliver them to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where Ted never arrived. Months went by. Then, in March 1980, Ted turned himself in New York. No intel on the whereabouts of the cantaloupe truck, the wharf trailer, the whiskey, or any of the loads.
Those are some damn important cantaloupes, I'll tell you.
Exactly.
I mean, they're just fruit, right? You have to wonder whether there was something inside them.
This is a very important incident in what we know about Ted Braden post-Vietnam.
Stole a trailer, sold its contents, stole another trailer, sold its contents. And it's worth remembering that this, back then, was the analog age. You couldn't just hop on the dark web and make nefarious contacts to do crime with. You had to know people, you had to have personal connections. And this speaks a lot, I think, to Ted's networking skills and history of his networking skills.
I can imagine Ted was probably part of the planning of it.
Something that appears very elaborate.
Back to the mafia ties.
So it's almost like three crimes in one. You know, you've got the cantaloupes, then you've got the meat and fish, and then you've got the whiskey. Was it all under the same auspices? Was it all under the same boss?
Driving these long distances from these states all the way out west, Arizona, California, back to Massachusetts. Back in that day, you would never go across a state line doing something nefarious like that if the local mob boys weren't involved, or at least had some pre-warning that you were doing it, because they would absolutely wonder where their cut was.
Ties to criminal organizations generally that have the resources to buy these massive amounts of stolen goods to fund themselves, especially with perishable goods like frozen meat and cantaloupe. So it's like you have to have buyers lined up.
Was it one job? Was it 3 separate jobs?
Shows you that he has no fear. Probably had the right co-conspirators that could get him that far.
If it's not the mafia, it's someone just as powerful. It's like, if it's not the mafia, I don't know what else it would be.
Was it one big job?
He would not sweat any part of that operation.
I mean, it would have to be a very large criminal organization, and I mean, that's pretty much the mafia, right?
Ted is not even going to attempt this without the guarantee of some serious, some serious dollars.
He was willing to roll the dice. At any time, he was willing to roll the dice.
Why did he surrender? I don't know.
Back in Ohio, Trooper Meyer discovered Ted Braden had recently been released from FCI Terre Haute before the Turnpike ordeal, the big federal prison with death row. Fact is, in 1982, Meyer was given incorrect information. We have the court records. And the thing about Terre Haute? Not entirely true. Why did Ted Braden turn himself in? Don't know. Ted was facing many possible charges for his crime spree. He was only charged for a small fraction. He claimed he was indigent, broke. He did go to court. He was prosecuted. He was found guilty. The dirt is in the details. Ted was sentenced to only 2 years in prison. This big cross-country crime spree, and he got 2 years. Ted was sentenced to Terre Haute. That's true. FCI Terre Haute is home to federal death row. Also true. It's also home to a minimum security federal prison camp. FPC Terre Haute. It didn't have a fence in 1980. Ted Braden was sentenced to federal prison camp, Terre Haute. He did not serve 2 years. He served 8 months.
Well, my question is if it had been anyone else than Ted Braden, how much would a normal person get?
Oh, decade.
10 years?
He knew he'd get a slap on the wrist. His protection system was in full operational mode.
For the crimes he committed, only serving 8 months in the end seems pretty light.
I shouldn't chuckle here, but you do almost have to laugh at this. I mean, Ted ended up serving 8 months in essentially a camp.
It's like he had pre-knowledge that if he gets caught, it's not going to be severe. That's why he can take on these big capers a few months at a club fed, as they're called.
Kind of like his detainment in Fort Dix, it almost seems like those in power here are doing all they can not to inconvenience him while still maintain some sort of minimal semblance of legal justice at the same time.
He's probably getting his cigars and everything else he likes brought in.
This guy was getting away with everything. Who is behind the reduction in these sentences and moving him from, probably a serious prison to, I wouldn't want to say a holiday camp, but a prison camp. Who is doing this?
They definitely let him off real light.
Someone is still looking after him somewhere.
Why that is? I don't know.
Ted Braden was released from FPC Terre Haute on the 24th of November, 1981. The shop and save robbery in Pittsburgh with Bernie and the Chicken Hill Bandit, allegedly, was the 5th of February, 1982. 2 months, 12 days. That's how long it took Ted to get back in the game. Think about it. On paper, Ted was crime-free from 1967 to 1979. After living in a penthouse in 1973, he's claiming indigence in court records in 1979. And Ted suddenly can't stop committing major felonies. Frank from Schaefer's Lounge mentioned something about a trailer.
The guy that owned the shop and safe was complaining. I remember him hollering because there was a trailer parked back there. I didn't know what it was. I mean, it was just a trailer sitting back there. Didn't pay no mind to it. After that trailer was gone, then I learned that it was a stolen trailer with a load of whiskey in it.
Could the trailer of Canadian whiskey that Ted did not deliver to Albuquerque and Frank's trailer be the same trailer? Or was Ted stealing trailers every time the Schaefer's Lounge phone rang? In 1979, everything blew up. Ted didn't go from no crime to small crime. He went from no crime to high-dollar interstate crime with federal involvement. He's described as intelligent. He had skills to keep himself employed. He was a Chicago truck driver in 1975. Then, something completely different by the end of the decade. Do 50-year-old people suddenly jump into big crime like that?
I think his military experience brought him to, higher adrenaline levels of having a skydiving past, which is a very high adrenaline sport even to this day. I think the crime was just a replacement for the adrenaline that he found in combat. Staying all day in an office was just not his thing.
There's no doubt in my mind that Ted was affected physically and mentally by his military time. He overstayed, I suppose you could say that.
This is really what he always did. The adventure and adrenaline created by pulling it off. I think that was the only replacement he could find for not being in the military, hunting people, being hunted. How do you replace that? Once you're used to that kind of level of adrenaline, he didn't fear death. And if it came, he was ready for it. It was something that made him different.
I do wonder if he was actually destitute when he committed these interstate crimes, because he was apparently swimming in cash only a few years before.
So what happened?
Ted's major jump into crime at 50 years old. What did that result from? It's almost like he came into big money and then just blew it.
Where's this money coming from?
Is Ted's move into crime what happens when someone like Ted is let loose.
Something happened. Something happened. Something's bringing in money. I don't think it's legitimate.
You should not know this is not an accusation, nor is it an attempt to reframe, glorify, or sensationalize. It is the newly discovered documentation of one man's remarkable, not honorable, life by definition. There are people who experience Ted Braden in ways documents cannot. If you knew Ted, please reach out to the investigation, publicly or privately, on the record or off. Make contact at youshouldnotknowthis.org.
Creators of Fortress, Nicaragua, that intends to export communism beyond its borders.
Ted Braden walked out of his comfy little prison park and right back into the fire in 1982. He was eventually saved from the Erie County Jail by the FBI. Ted did walk off into an unsolved mystery, but not forever. When Ted pings on the radar after the Erie County rescue, he's south of Ohio. Why he's south of Ohio? Mysterioso.
You should not know this, but they're too late.